Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Handi Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters. ROBERIKAUFMAN Fabrics, quality fabrics for quilting. Sulky, express yourself with sulky and create with confidence. And The Warm Company, inspiring products for creative people.
Hi, and welcome to Quilters Newsletter TV. We are at the International Quilt Market in Kansas City with Debby Brown from Handi Quilter. And Debby is here to show us the Sweet 16 with TruStitch.
I visited the various vendors at Quilt Market and collected some threads. They worked beautifully on our machine. I went to YLI and picked up some beautiful embroidery thread and quilting thread. I went to Wonderfil and got some rayon and some 100-weight polyester. I went to Superior and got some monopoly and some silk and some wonderful metallics, and of course King Tut. Went to American Eford and got some permacore, some signature, a beautiful metallic, and then of course there's Quilter's Choice thread by Golden Threads.
So Debby, I'm excited to hear about the Handi Quilter Sweet 16 with TruStitch. Do you want to show me how it works?
Sure thing. We're going to start with the way the machine works in manual mode. Whenever you're used to sewing, you press your foot pedal down and the machine goes at one speed. You try to be very consistent in your stitching so that you don't get big stitches and little stitches. But we have a way that you can have consistent stitches without having to worry so much about your hand speed, if that's more comfortable for you. We have a new TruStitch. It's a controller we place under the quilt. Turn the regulator on. I'm choosing 12 stitches per inch. And I'm going to move the controller under the quilt while I'm moving the quilt. It's making full contact with the table without interfering with my view of the quilt at any time. So you can hear it's getting a little faster and slower as I'm quilting faster and slower, giving me that perfect 12 stitches to the inch right now. See how nice that turns out?
That's wonderful.
Now I know sometimes I just quilt and I reposition my hands and I forget that the controller is under the quilt. So we do have a magnet here as well. So I can hold on to it, but if I would forget and let go, the magnet is going to stay is going to keep the controller right with my quilt. So I can keep on quilting and not worry so much about where my hand is. And I can do that without holding on. Sometimes you'll get to the edge of your quilt, or you'll have a quilt that doesn't have much fabric to it and need to hold the controller off the side. We have a coaster for that. Just going to fold this over. You can put this right at the edge of your quilt. Clip it on, place the controller right in the coaster, and it's going to move along with the quilt for me again. Keeping that perfect stitch without having to worry about where that controller is while I'm quilting. Now there are many other ways to quilt other than just a simple overall design. Sometimes you may want to add some straight lines to the quilt. So we have a Handi Quilter mini ruler. I can push the ruler along with the quilt, put it right against the foot of the machine. I've gotten my straight line. And then instead of having to rotate the entire quilt, I can simply change the direction of the ruler and not have to unroll and reposition the quilt repeatedly.
That's slick.
It's very slick. You can also take some stencils. I made some stencils out of some Golden Threads paper here. And I stitched through it to make a stencil I can pounce through. Take my pounce pad. And I can just transfer the design onto the quilt and follow that line as well. So here, I don't have to know much about free motion quilting to trace a line, and I can choose whatever speed I'm comfortable stitching at and follow the line there. Once I'm done, I can simply iron that powder away.
That's very cool.
You can pick any pattern you want and transfer it with that golden threads paper. I have some samples here of other work that
I
you
would
can
like
do.
to see those.
So this is done with a stencil as well. I took a stencil, pounced on all of these designs, and just repeated it in a circle. Used some wonderful metallic thread. This was from Marathon, actually. And I stitched it in the metallic, and I liked it so much I went back and stitched it again so I could really see the metallic. And then I went in with some very fine 100 weight polyester thread and did my background quilting, and it stands out beautifully.
That is lovely.
You can also do very traditional quilting with some hand applique, and then I enhanced it by doing a lot of very small decorative quilting in the background, and then also some very subtle quilting in the red area. That was all done just one stitch at a time, very slowly, putting the stitches exactly where I want them. It's very accurate.
And you have several different thread types on this.
This one I have 100 weight polyester from Invisifil in the yellow area and in the red area. The next quilt I have several different thread types in. This one is when I try to use all the thread I have on one quilt at the same time. I can put multiple threads through the needle at the same time and just paint away. So there's some very strange colors in here you wouldn't think of, but if you put all of your threads together, it mixes it's like mixing your own paints when you're thread painting. So I think there's a blue and a yellow and an orange in the green area, and I have some browns and yellows in the purple area, colors you would never guess, but it gives the right depth of color. And I just went over it again and again with those 3 threads at once. And then I went and did the background quilting once I was done. So this quilt probably has more thread in it than my king-size bedspread does. Just layer it on top of each other.
And it's an interesting look, isn't it?
It is. It looks a lot like machine embroidery.
Yes, it does.
And it is machine embroidery, but this was the machine that did the embroidery.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Well, Debbie, thank you very much for joining us today. I enjoyed learning about all of your tricks.
I enjoyed it too. Thank you very much.
Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Handi Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters. ROBERIKAUFMAN Fabrics, quality fabrics for quilting. Sulky, express yourself with Sulky and create with confidence. And The Warm Company, inspiring products for creative people.